Thank you for joining the Change I Am Possible, which is India's first Future Tech Meets Sustainability podcast. Today, I'm delighted and honored to have me, Mr. Kye Andersson, who's a strategist of a major impact initiatives at AI Sweden, focusing on accelerating applied AI in Swedish healthcare, media, democracy, and sustainability. Kye has also established the Swedish AI Council as well as the Nordic AI Alliance, and is also the Chief Experience Officer at Kanishi. So, Kye, it's really a complete pleasure and honor to have you part of the conversation. So why don't we give a little context, who you are, what do you do?
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here. Who am I and what do I do? I started as a programmer way back, and I've worked with many things along the way in digital agencies, and I happened to come into the field of AI or deep learning about 5 years ago via venture capital and private equity and communication agencies, and have been working on the private side in a deep learning platform company for a long time, but also was part of establishing the Swedish National AI Center, AI Sweden, where I'm working now. I'm working both there and also within a new company called Kanuki, within one of the largest industrial spheres in Sweden, where we're working to use AI to accelerate the transformation of companies. So I'm super excited about what's happening right now, and especially about all this type of conversations that we're having across the world right now, because there's so much happening and so much need to share things.
Just maybe if you go back like 15 or 20 years back, there was just, there was artificial intelligence, just a couple of technologies, and it had not even matured, but now things are maturing, all of these technologies, and somehow it's converging, and it has moved from being R&D to being implemented finally, and we're seeing these real world use cases, and I think we're just seeing the first few glimpses of what this technology can do and how it can transform our world. We need to have a concerted global effort where we join hands around the world, and it shouldn't be just one person. So you said collaboration. I think collaboration will be the key for going forward. So why don't we start with AI Sweden? When was it formed? What does it do? And some of your initiatives or implementations at AI Sweden.
AI Sweden was formed, I think, roughly 2 years ago. We're working with both private and public organizations, but it's funded both from the government and from the industry itself, which is the Nordic model, to always try to work together because we need to share data. Both benefit from collaborating. And essentially, we realized we're only 10 million people. We're too small. Very few companies have enough data. We're not fortunate enough to have your healthcare platform to access all that data. So all our organizations need to be able to share data, share modeling, and work together on sharing learnings from infrastructure to really progress in accelerating AI. So that's what we're doing essentially, building data factories, working on edge technology, and also working a lot with language models, both in the medical sphere and also in our Swedish language.
Would you like to, unpack some of the applications or services that you've built out? Because when I was on your website and I saw that you, like GPT-3, you guys have GPT Sweden. So besides, that are there any other applications that you guys have built? Would you like to share with my audience?
The problem with AI is that it's very fluffy. It's hard to understand because we want to explain it. Okay, how does this work? And essentially, AI is all about looking at data and being able to find patterns better than we humans can and faster, so we can make better predictions, to find cancer quicker or understand quicker what a child in school needs currently or is more prone to learn and happier to learn at the moment. So we don't have to treat everyone the same way. So in the healthcare system, all around the world, we're treating you when you break down. And we're only treating one damage at a time. Although we know that your body and mental state is all connected, we still send you to one specialist and you treat that one thing. But in the industry, we've already shifted to preventive maintenance. So we fix things before they break down. So in healthcare, that's what we want to do, to use all your data from your Garmin or your sport watch or your Apple Watch to whatever data you want to share as a citizen. We want to be able to use that to let you know something's wrong. Maybe it's time for a checkup before your immune system breaks down and you're prone to catching COVID or whatever is happening. And I think that's a good analogy to understand how you use it. The more data we can use, the more we can work with and find new patterns. GPT-3 and BERT and XLMR, they're very, very good at English. They're actually very good at other languages as well. But when you get into specific domains, like a specific industry or healthcare, they're not as good. So we have a project where we're retraining or fine-tuning the model based on medical language, so it can be better to understand, to be used in healthcare.
When you say that you're using your GPT-SWE for medical language, when you say, okay, could you break that down? How will we be able to see real world benefits? Or how Sweden is benefiting from the application that you built?
In this case, we're working with BERT, the Google model. So we're not using a dialogue-based system or more of an analysis system. And to explain what we're aiming for is, if I'm a patient and you're a nurse, and I'm saying nurse because a doctor might not be needed, and we're having a conversation and I'm describing how I feel, this model should be able to pick up on the topics that are relevant, do a real-time and use other systems, do a real-time literature study, check up on all the latest research in the world in real time, and give the nurse or the doctor a recommendation on this is probably what's happening with this person. We recommend this kind of checkups. And then, but this is very important, the human needs to double check. Okay, does this sound correct? I'm looking at this recommendation based on this data. Okay, yeah, that sounds feasible. But a human can never do that research and check up on all the data in the entire country or in the entire world of research. But the model can do that in the background and listen to our dialogue and help give recommendations.
Healthcare itself is moving from being reactive to proactive. These technologies are growing so powerful that it's got the potential to take out humans from the loop. The automation which is coming, it could create a lot of job loss, but then there's these pros and cons. There's a tug of war because there'll obviously be, at least here in India, we have a problem because there are a lot of these doctors who actually pass through by not even giving the exam, by paying universities. So the good doctors obviously will not lose the jobs, but then maybe the ones who are not really professionals, maybe they might make way for the good doctors, and possibly like virtual doctors, virtual nurses to robotic doctors. These sounds a little too fictiony and maybe far out future, but when you see something like this coming in, how deeply do you see the world getting impacted? I mean, the automation, when you have robots taking over jobs, do you see that happening, and what could be the impact?
Well, firstly, jobs have always changed. The difference is now that it's happening faster and faster. And I think it goes back to one of the first questions or first topics you raised, the worry about, okay, what's happening? We need to collaborate more. And I think it's not about that we need to come up with regulations that we agree on globally. We need to question how we run society. That's the big thing. Like medical school, for instance. My bet is that needs to change. The curriculum needs to change in order to be able to work with AI. And we need to work and incentivize differently in order to work with AI across the board, to make it natural to use AI and prepare everyone to work alongside AI as a natural part. Every blue-collar worker, electrician, handyman, whoever, nurse, teacher I've ever talked to including taxi drivers and truck drivers, they're all super excited about AI. They weren't worried about losing their jobs. That's come later because media has hyped like that worry a lot. But we have a shortage of truck drivers in Europe. All taxi drivers I've talked to, they're excited to start their own taxi companies run by autonomous cars. Teachers, they have too much administration. They want to work less with administration and more with teaching. So I think it's very much up to our politicians and the ones who lead our organizations to look to the future and discuss how are we going to work in the future instead of trying to regulate technology, because that has never worked in the entire human history to regulate technology.
Through history, technology is that tool which has enabled us, though, when technology surfaces or shows up, the 90% of the population gets a little scared because we are so traditionally legacy driven who don't want to change. Change is very scary, but the ones who change and accept the new and adopt and implement the new, I think, the lives only get better. And I think technology as a tool has always created better lives. Yeah, obviously there is this fringe element, when it goes to, so technology itself inherently is never bad. It's the people who choose to use technology the way it can, you good or bad. You mentioned.
But I would like to actually challenge that 90% get scared. I think this is my thesis. I think we're making the mistake to assume, and it's a bit elitistic, that academics and media assume that blue-collar workers are scared of technology. In this case, and in most cases, academics and those in power have more to lose than the actual workers. If you explain to any profession who work with their hands, would you like this assisting technology to help you with blueprints or muscle powers to ease your day? Most of them will say, yeah, hell yeah, let me learn this new technology. But instead we talk down to them and explain for them that they are scared. And obviously if we say that they're going to be scared, then they will be scared.
Right. What is the cutting edge of AI at this point in time that has caught your attention and you're excited for?
I would say one of the most cutting edge things we're working on, we have an edge lab where we're working on, close to application on training of models, which is essential to not be able to, so you don't have to transfer large data volumes from cars to nodes, or even I'm on a board of a company that work with AI in space and data in space. So you can actually process and work with the data on the satellites to analyze images, or even when we start space mining asteroids, so you can make calculations and predictions on the actual spacecraft. That's one of the most exciting things technology-wise. But one of the most exciting things to me, I think, in the AI in general, is individualization of learning in school for children.
Would you like to unpack that a little bit? Because, at least here in India, our education system is stuck in the past. But then there are a bunch of edtech guys, online guys who are leveraging augmented reality, virtual reality, and artificial intelligence to bring in, the new with the education. So when you say that you are leveraging AI for education, could you unpack or give references or use cases that you guys are building?
So one of our partners in Sweden is one of the leading AI learning companies in the world, or learning platform companies that are using AI. They're mainly focusing now on adult education, like continuous education in the workforce. But the same technology is easily applied in grammar school on children. And that's where I think it should be prioritized by our government and politicians, because research and science is known for I don't know how many decades that every child develops differently at different paces. Not everyone are prone to learning the same type of math or whatever we teach them in school at the same time in life. And if they happen to not be at that exact spot, then they won't be interested and they'll fall out. And with AI, we can understand what they need at any given point and serve them what they are most optimistic and positive about and let them focus on that. And we can give that information to the teacher so the teacher can teach different things at different times. And that way we can give each child the potential to learn or to fulfill her or his own potential. We can give those tools. And I think at the moment we're failing our children by teaching them on a conveyor belt principle.
Yeah, the world needs to change. There is so much opportunity. It's just that we are looking at creating band-aid solution. We do not want to move on to the new personalized education. If it actually happens, you won't need to load a student with everything. You could actually push content which is personalized and which benefits him, and you said fulfills his or her potential. So yes, the future looks exciting. You mentioned that Sweden has a population of 10 million. We have got demographic dividend, huge youth population. AI Sweden and India have been, talking and creating partnerships. How can we create real world benefits, where it touches startups of both countries? Can we create bridges where it does not just is limited to just a conference events, but where startups, entrepreneurs, students can leverage off each other's, like our students and entrepreneurs, startups from India can leverage from startups and entrepreneurs and investors from Sweden, and in both ways. How can we go about doing that? Because most of these conferences and these models, at least from my perspective, looks like it's just government people talking without real world benefits.
Very often we talk about collaboration and then we have a conference and then everyone pats each other on the back and we say, yeah, well done. And I think the private sector is better at creating collaborations, and we have long-standing collaborations between Sweden and India in large corporations, and we know large corporations need startups and new companies to be able to innovate. So I think like the Ericssons and the Scanias and the Tatas, they could, if they were to run more of a kind of an accelerator or meeting program together to help startups, maybe together with our chambers of commerce, I think that could make things happen much, much faster, because then we could pair problems with solutions and opportunities with startups and also funding.
Today, sitting here in India, Bombay, I could reach out with a startup from Sweden, leverage their research and development. They could leverage ours, and we could build something collaborative which works not just for our own respective countries but for the entire world. I think we need to stop this trying to hold or dominate a technology, because that's what I think is happening, at least with US and China, because there's the race to acquire technology, and I'm sure that race could have collateral damage on the others. You mentioned that, I mean, your profile says that you are leveraging AI for media, democracy and sustainability. Would you like to talk a little bit more about that?
So we've been working for the last, I think, 18 months with the largest media houses in Sweden to really find ways to leverage AI technologies to assist in journalism, because journalism has I think a more important role than ever nowadays to cut through all the opinions and the social media rumors and really provide like facts for people to safeguard democracy and uphold our politicians and make them hold them accountable. So what we've done is we've used language technology to look through all the invoices in all our municipalities. We're looking at that to find discrepancies, to find potential mistakes or even corruption, because we can look through millions and millions of documents and texts in very, very short time. And we're working together, and the municipalities and the politicians or the elected, the people working there, they're also welcoming it. So we're working together with journalism and the municipalities, because they want, I mean, at their core, they want to create a good society. So it's a very good project.
The only work in the world which is completely unaccountable is politics, because they can do what they want, and it's never unaccountable, at least here in India. So I hope with data, leveraging data, we'll be able to create better governance. What is it about AI that scares you? Because artificial intelligence can do real good, but then there's other side, like governments are leveraging it for creating autonomous weapons. And in fact, just I think last year, Israel leveraged AI to eliminate Iran's nuclear scientist, I think, And so these are in its nascent stage. There are also AI drones, Are we not taking cognizant of how dangerous these machines could be if we leverage it for war and these bad things? Does that worry you?
No, not at all. The machines and the technology is just an extension of humanity. Whatever we tell them to do, they will do. Nothing would scare me more than what we have done the last 100 years in humanity. I don't think machines will ever top that. If something, they will prevent that. What scares me, though, is the challenge to democracy. Because if we don't keep up with the technology and bring that to everyone, the rich and the one who have the power will go and buy it, and they will get more access to more things and more knowledge and more everything. People will buy healthcare from the ones who can provide wherever that is in the world, education for the kids wherever they are in the world, and there will be gaps. And that is a big threat to democracy. As soon as gaps occur and polarization in society, then democracy will be challenged.
Right. I think you said something very profound. You said that, what humans have done over the 100 years, it's highly unlikely machines would be able to do that. And you rightfully pointed out, I think it's the inequalities, and if we look at that, maybe the world will become a better place. But then a capitalistic structure itself breeds like a zero-sum game, so how do we escape that is something that I think we need to have like a kind of larger conversations, though blockchain kind of is that technology which says that maybe it could be or play a role in taking us from a centralized functioning to a decentralized world, maybe. But then these are all assumptions and speculations, unless and until it actually binds together, we don't really know, because the powers that be would never want to, give away the power because they run the world. So would you like to share your thoughts? Where do you see these things shaping up?
Yeah, no, I think we're on a threshold for humanity to make a big shift to let go of our power but I would say mostly our fear. We're discussing wars. The reason for wars is because often we need an excuse. We need an external enemy to not have to face our own problems or deal with our own problems. That's most of the cause for wars. And the cause for that is somewhere a group of people are safeguarding power. That goes from politicians to corporate leaders to the United Nations, wherever you want to go. But if we could make the shift to Web3 and start to decentralize things and make sure that we see the truth, the objective truth, what's happening, then we don't end up in scenarios where different leaders in different countries have different opinions that eventually lead to war. Then we can have much more informative discussions around the world. But it's really problematic to try to change a bunch of 40, 50-year-old men around the world. I think we need to start to change and focus on the next generation. And I'm positive and very optimistic about the next generation, because I think there's been a huge change in how they see the world. They're much less xenophobic from what I experience. It's much more natural to look at being purpose-driven, not naturally looking as to, I need to have a certain title. I'm going to become something, a title when I grow up. They want to really do something and accomplish themselves in another way. And I think that's fantastic.
You pointed out correctly that the newer generation are more purpose-driven and they understand the wrongs that's been done so far, and they have a desire to correct them, and yeah, I really hope that the world becomes better, because these people, these new bunch of entrepreneurs are thinking differently. They're thinking not just of gathering money, but creating technology which can create a larger good. Would you like to share predictions of what artificial intelligence will do in 2022, this year, the new year, and beyond?
I think we're going to see more and more real-time applications because we get easier and easier tools. We don't have to have as many scientists. It's going to be easier for developers and startups to just off the shelf use AI models, and they get infrastructure components in place and just work with it. And I hope that we will see more access to big data sets around the world. And connected to that, more understanding of the regulations that stop us from collaborating between the European Union and the rest of the world. The government representatives don't have the resources the legal resources to understand how we could transfer models and collaborate and share data.
What do you think the future is going to look like in 10 years?
Well, I sincerely hope that we've used AI and data to break through our barriers, our inabilities to really discuss the future, because currently we're locked into a financial system, the stock market, that rewards us for short-term benefits. And that's stopping us from making important changes like climate, to moving towards more sustainability, because we're rewarded for what we're doing today. So we keep accumulating costs for the future, for climate, for our children, for our healthcare system. And if we can use data and AI to objectively predict what's happening in the future, then we will have a tool that we can incentivize different choices today. That's what I'm hoping that we will have in place worldwide in 10 years.
We're living in a world where, we're going from, patenting things to a very open source things, and AI is just kind of like showing up in ways which is, right from your autonomous vehicles to healthcare to media and so many things. And I think we need to collaborate, Sweden, India, US, China. If we all join together, I think, we'll be able to create technology which is for the larger good. I think we're getting into a very exciting world, and we need to all join hands. I think that's fine. And thank you, and wish you and your team the very best. And really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. And to my listeners, if you like what you see in here, then please press the subscribe button. Until next time, see you guys. Bye. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate this.
Thank you.